Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. My guest today is Katie Hoff, dubbed the female Michael Phelps, for better or worse. More on that in today's conversation. Katie made her first of 2 Olympic teams at just 15 years of age, and along the way accrued 3 Olympic medals, 8 world championship titles, a bunch of world and American records, and many other accolades. But this isn't really some kind of unrelatable success story, because the thing about Katie, what's most interesting about her, to me at least, is that this is an athlete that could and probably should have had a far more decorated career. So what happened? Well, today we get into all of it, the high highs, the crazy success at a young age that led to insane pressure, expectations, bitter disappointment, of course, all the valuable and applicable life lessons learned along the way, all of which you can also read about in her recently released memoir, Blueprint. So do me a solid, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and here we go. This is me and Katie Hoff. So nice to meet you.
I know, you too.
Thanks for coming out and doing this in person.
I know. It's actually my first. I've never done a podcast like this in person with like a studio.
That's so funny because it's all Zoom these days.
All Zoom.
Yeah. But you've done a bunch of podcasts, just never,
Yeah.
You've never done an in-person podcast with anybody?
Maybe like okay, there was one that was like I wouldn't call it that. It was like in a small room.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a studio. But yeah, I think over COVID, I feel like I knocked out like 15 because it was just like all
The book
anyone
stuff.
could do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I was the one having to worry about like my lighting and like my background, and I got really good at lighting.
Well, we have good lighting
You have
here.
great lighting. I know.
You're going to look fabulous on YouTube. It's all good. Delighted to have you here. It's so funny because, of course, I knew about your career and followed your trajectory over the years. But it wasn't until you started popping up on Jesse Itzler's Instagram stories. And I was like, why is Katie Hoff at Jesse's house teaching him how to swim? I thought that was so entertaining. And then you spoke at his like build your life resume thing.
Yeah.
And then I saw you had a book coming out and I was like, oh, she would be great for the show. So that's when I reached out.
Oh, well, thank you.
How did you meet Jesse initially? That's such a strange, I mean, he's such a funny, cool, awesome dude, but I would not have predicted you two colliding.
Neither would I. It's actually a really kind of crazy jump connect story. So Kurt Steinhorst, who is a speech coach, does his own speaking. My agent at the time had connected us last year to do like a speaking camp, like, cause I really love public speaking and I knew I wanted to get into it more after my book. And Kurt had also worked with Jesse. And I actually had known of Jesse before because Todd, my husband, had seen him speak at an Equinox event. And Todd was blown away by his charisma and his energy and his story. And so when I had the book coming out, I just kind of got into this mode of like, well, I just want to talk to every expert out there that's doing what I want to do, which is speaking and sharing your story. So I just DM'd him. I just slid in the DMs of Jesse and I just said, hey, big fan. I love what you represent. I'm actually going to have a book come out in a few months. We have a mutual friend in Kurt. Would you have 5 minutes? I just would love to pick your brain. And I did this to a couple people. And Jesse responded within 6 hours.
Right.
Like, hey, email me. And I email him and we set up the thing. We FaceTime, which I was, oh my gosh. And I find out that he's at his Connecticut place, his Connecticut house, and he's there for another day. And he was like, look, I'm going to give you, your advice. He's like, but in return, you have to promise to come to one of my events. And that's the deal. And I was like, I don't see how this is a deal. Like, these are all just benefiting me. Like, how can how can I give to you? And I had heard him talk about how he's doing, this big, fortunately it got canceled this year, but big event with swimming. And I'd seen that on his Instagram. And I was like, well, why don't I give you a swim lesson in return? And he was like, yeah, come out. And I was like, okay.
And you were in New York at the time,
Yeah.
right? So you just took the train up and went to his house?
We rented a car, and I said, do you mind if I bring, my husband and my little Frenchie? And he was like, absolutely. So we drove out and ended up spending the day with his family and Sarah and gave him the swim lesson. And just, that's how it happened.
He's true blue that way. I mean, first of all, he's an incredibly gifted, he is extremely charismatic, incredibly gifted public speaker, like so natural and moving, really like touched in that way. But more than that, he just has this huge heart. Like, it's not surprising to me that he'd be like, yeah, come on over and hang out. And he likes to have lots of people around, you know, like he likes hiring young people. Like, there's all these young people running around him and like working on his social media with him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he's running this whole like enterprise, basically off of his phone, essentially.
Yeah. It's wild.
I
And
know.
Todd and I left, we were sat in the car, we drove away, and I just looked at him and I was like, I just feel like being around him, you just want to be a better person.
Right.
Like, that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Just how he and his wife interact, and he interacts with his kids. And it just was a very cool experience to be able to meet someone so successful, but he really is
incredibly grounded and
Yes.
always super enthusiastic and optimistic,
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
I just remember seeing video clips. He's in the pool and he's wearing the Hoff cap, like he's wearing your swim cap. And, he's got a lot of work to do on his swimming a little bit,
Yeah,
But God bless him.
I will say, the other
He's
day,
come a long way.
He posted a video in the ocean. I was like, is that him? Like, he looked so different compared to what he looked like in the pool last year. So I was impressed.
He was going to do this Ultraman race. So I was helping him, and my coach, Chris Houth, who also is friends with Jesse, was trying to guide him in the right direction. But, he's doing a million different things. Like, his approach to these events is not the one that, the hardcore athlete would take. Like, he's squeezing. I mean, he gets all these workouts in, but he doesn't compromise any of the other things that he's doing in his life.
No.
Like, he's like, I just want to finish, He takes the training seriously, but he's not the guy who's like all in and like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I feel like he's just like, whatever the race throws at me, I'm going to handle it.
Right.
And I'm just going to tough it out. And I've done it before. So
Right.
sounds like that's what he did for his 100-miler.
Yeah, I know. So. Probably not the smartest, though, when he tells the story about how that went down.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. It sounds, I don't know how he did it. It sounds like he just was mind over matter type situation. So.
Well, here you are. You're on the other side of a, incredible swimming career, which we're going to get into. And now you've got this book, and you did a TED Talk, and you're kind of this, public speaker person, and you've got this business. I'm always interested in the transition from super elite athlete into, the kind of pedestrian world of everybody else. And it's not a very gracious one for most people, and it's very difficult. And you seem like you've had your bumps, and I appreciated in your book like how honest you were about the difficulties with this, because I think it's really hard when you're somebody like yourself who's so in the spotlight and everything is so excited and the stakes are so high in everything that you're doing, and all these people are paying attention, and it feels like it's meaningful, to then overnight be like, oh, I guess I just have to figure out how to, make my way in the world.
Yeah, I think that's also why it took so long to write the book. I guess 5 years isn't so long, but to me it felt long. And I never felt like I could be honest about just how much I did struggle until this point. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like you said, you go from the age of, I think even 10, people were telling me, you're Katie Hoff, like you're breaking state records. That's who you are. And I remember even telling my dad, I think I talk about this in the book, like I got DQ'd in a backstroke race and I just had a meltdown. And my dad was like, it's okay. Like, it's fine. I'm like, no, but like, I can't, I've reached a level where like, I can't do that. I'm not supposed to mess up. I'm not supposed to fail. And that carried all the way through. And then to really end my career, not the way that I wanted to. And then I kind of took the other direction of, instead of embracing everything that happened in my career, I turned and ran and didn't want Olympian associated with my name, and said, I'm just going to redefine myself and be this corporate person and be recognized and get accolades in that way. And
did you really go out of your way, though, to make sure that people didn't know who you were, like from the Olympic world, in the corporate world? Or did you, because most people would just trade off that.
You know, it's funny. I think there were moments when I wanted people to know, but at the same time, like it was this, I kept straddling this war with myself. You know, I wanted to be recognized as that's what I've done with my life, because my life didn't make sense if people didn't know that about me. Like, wait, you're 26, you're starting this entry-level job, like, why? So then I would want it to come out and be like, well, here's why.
Right.
But then there was
just
the
so
other
you know.
side. Just so you know, like, I'm not, you know, but I felt like I was starting over. And so there was that side of it. And then there was the other side of it where I didn't like when, you know, I would get a call out on a sales call for hitting great numbers and they would be like the Olympian, because I wanted to be recognized because I had done something
right, the
really
merit
well.
on its own.
It was a weird straddle of pick the day. Which day? Did I want people to know? Did I not?
Yeah. I think there's this strange tension with the athlete, not specifically swimmers, but people who are participating in sports where it's really an individual thing, where you become, to reach the highest level, you have to be very good at taking direction. Like, you have a coach and your coach tells you to do these things and you execute on those.
Yeah.
So you're a good rule follower in that regard. And hopefully, under the best circumstances, that relationship with the coach is more of a partnership. But it really is about kind of checking boxes, right? And doing as you're told. And yet at the same time, it's so that bodes well for like the corporate world. Like, you have a boss and the boss tells you to do these things and then you go out and you do it. But on the other hand, your success is dictated by, basically, it's between you and you, right? And you're fueled by this desire to be the best version of yourself, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of an entrepreneurial sort of flair. So those two things kind of work together, I think, in the sport of swimming. But when you go out into the world, you kind of have to decide, like, am I going to be in the corporate machine or am I going to try to do my own thing? And in your book, I see that tension playing out, like you're trying both things and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's funny. And I feel like I'd always claimed to everyone that, oh, I could never be an entrepreneur, because I didn't see this side of it. I just saw, I'm the most successful version of myself when I'm being told what to do. I check the boxes, boom, 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 success. I never thought that I had that in me and that entrepreneurial spirit, which now I know that I do. But I think that's why I immediately beeline to the corporate world, because I saw the parallels. I saw, okay, I hit this number of emails and this number of calls and this number of activity that equals being this on the ranking of success. And it correlated. It was almost an easy transition, but it wasn't a healthy one, because it just, I also, when you're check the boxes in swimming, you're trying to break a world record. You're trying to be the best in the world.
There's a much greater personal investment in what that success looks like than there is in the corporate world.
Yes. And so I think after a few months, I was wondering why I had this empty feeling, because I was doing what I thought I was supposed to do. Like, okay, well, this worked in swimming, check the boxes. I'm doing everything possible. I'm going above and beyond. I'm staying late. I'm coming in early. Why do I not feel just satisfied again? Like, I thought it was that easy to be like, swimming's done, great. I'm just going to transfer all of those skills I learned and go into the corporate world, and it's going to be
awesome.
It's going to be awesome. So there were definitely a lot of things that translated really well. Just to me, sales and swimming, there's a scoreboard, there's the, getting to know people, understanding them, match and mirroring. Like, I loved that piece of it, where I could have, and I was in the fitness world, so I could have someone in front of me, learn about them and help them, find a fitness journey. And I was very passionate about that. But the hard part was when I hit the numbers, I didn't have that same feeling.
It's not like getting on top of the podium.
It's not, right? But I felt very, I think, misunderstood, because again, the world, I had plunked myself out of the swimming world where I was surrounded by individuals who were going for those same goals as I was. Being fortunate enough to be in a really high level club, to high level, swim teams where others were going for the Olympics. And so to be surrounded by people who hadn't had those experiences, I felt almost like, wait, why do I not feel this way? Because they're telling me I should feel this way. And I felt very like, what's wrong with me, kind
Guilty.
of? And maybe I'm just not being patient enough. And look how long it took me to become an Olympian. It took me 15 years from the time not even 10 years from the time I started swimming. So maybe it's just that I'm not being patient enough. And I was beating myself up over that and thinking, okay, well, I just have to wait and then I'll feel satisfied.
But then at some point you realize, not for me.
Yeah, I think at some point I had to hit myself over the head with it enough times to realize, no, I don't think that, it's not that this organization or that organization isn't great and I'm learning things, but I don't think that, I think I need to do something that I'm owning and I'm able to set the rules and I'm able to feel empowered to do so. And that took 5 years before I even had the confidence to say that.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, you don't have a coach either, right?
Yeah.
You have Todd and you have support, but it is a little bit of a different thing. It's scary in that regard. But the difference is you now then have that personal investment in your success. It's like where you take it correlates to what you decide to do and the work that you put in, which makes it kind of like swimming, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for the longest time, I kept thinking, okay, because my whole thing was, okay, what did swimming give me? Why did I like swimming so much? And it wasn't necessarily the actual sport. It was what it made me feel. And that feeling is extraordinary. I felt extraordinary to be striving to be the best in the world. That was such an awesome feeling to me. And for the longest time, I was like, well, maybe I'm just never going to get that feeling again. Maybe those are the glory days and maybe I'm just not going to. But it was more, no, you just need to find a passion again that is equal or greater than what swimming gave you. And it wasn't, fitness sales. It wasn't operations. It was being able to share my story and then, empower others to also feel strong and confident.
Right.
And that's, I think, how it finally all clicked.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky that it has clicked so soon for you. Took me a lot longer. You know what I mean? I think, we put so much pressure on ourselves, especially in this, kind of Instagram culture that we all live in, like live your passion and, you need to quit your job and like do your thing and now's the time. And I think that ends up making a lot of people feel bad about themselves.
Yeah.
We have lost our ability to just value, like it's cool to have a 9-to-5 job where you can pay your bills and, put food on the table. And if that's providing you with value in your life, like that's fantastic. But for some reason, we've decided that's not good enough. And I think it puts undue pressure, especially on young people, to have things figured out right away, like either right out of high school or college. And these things take time. Like there's a process of you have to go on this inside journey with yourself to discover what that is. And for some people, they figure that out quickly. Like if you had been, rather than a swimmer, a guitar player or a violinist or something like that, that's something you could ply for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But because it's sport, it has an expiration date on it. And when you're trying to compete at the highest level, there's no mental space to consider what you're going to be doing next. And I think that creates an existential crisis for a lot of athletes.
For sure. Yeah. And it's almost like if you, in my mind, if I was planning for my future, that meant I didn't believe in what was happening in a year. Like, wait, why the Olympics are in a year? Why would I plan on what's happening after?
Right. You're jinxing yourself.
Totally.
Right. You can't make plans for what comes after because that means that you don't believe that you're going to be able to do the thing that you're working so hard to achieve.
Yeah, and I remember I always had this canned answer. It was when I was living in California, and I thought I was going to go into the fashion world. I thought I was that was going to be what I was going to do. And people would always ask, like, so what's going to be next? And I remember thinking, what's next? Like, and I'd be like, yeah, like I think I'm going to go to fashion school. Like that was just like my brush off answer. But, when you're all in, you're all in. Like there's no, for me at least, and maybe that would have provided a little more balance had I had a hobby or I was looking ahead. But I think just naturally, like that is just my personality.
Yeah.
I'm on the obsessive side, and it's a strength as well as a curse. But I was not looking ahead. It was just, let me focus on making this next team, and that's all I care about.
I think that's most people in your situation. That's the way. I mean, you can't. There is no space for that. Like when you're talking about not just tenths of a second, but hundredths of a second, you have to be so all in that you can't devote 1 second to considering what's going to come after this chapter.
Yeah, and I would think, anyone who's successful in business, in entrepreneurship, in a sport, I feel like that is a trait where you can hyper focus and be, I say obsessed, but consumed in the best way, and that's how you reach that top level.
Right.
And so I love that feeling. I love being all in on something and just gripping it and not letting go until everything has been squeezed out or it's done. So
right, which is why it's not surprising that you were magnetized by Jesse and Sarah.
Yeah,
because they're both all in on what they do and the way that they live their lives.
Yes, to the extreme. I think it's Jesse, especially with some of the things he does, like even the way that he does, the steam room or the cold tub, like that is all, like everything that he does, I would say is 150%.
Because how you do anything is how you do everything, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back. I mean, what's so compelling about your career isn't so much the great successes that you've had. It's, for me at least, what resonates is the disappointments. Like on paper, yours is a career that probably should have been a lot more decorated than it was, right? And so you've had to kind of manage expectations and pressure over the years as somebody who showed such extraordinary promise as a young person and lived up to and fulfilled some of those expectations. And yet at the same time, I imagine, you're in a position where you have to look back and reflect on that career and deal with the fact like that you probably could have done things that you didn't do. Right?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That's very fair.
Yeah.
It's a very hard pill to swallow. And I think, again, why I took so long to write the book. I wasn't ready to swallow the pill. Like it was just way too big. And
because what? Talk to me about that. Like just the fear of reckoning with that, like emotionally?
Yeah, I think, and every time I tried to, it was just breakdown, and fortunately I have, a partner and a husband now who is very understanding of that, but I would get triggered all the time by watching swimming or, remembering a memory or just if someone doubted my effort. There were just so many things that were coming up, and I kept just saying, okay, the past is the past. I just need to move on. And which we all know, like, is the worst thing you can possibly do. But I think I just had such sadness over certain parts of my career, and I didn't really know. It's hard to say to someone who doesn't quite fully understand. I have 3 Olympic medals, and I'm disappointed by that.
Right.
And I didn't feel comfortable saying that really until I said it in my TED Talk, which was 2018. That was the first time I wrote it. And I was like, am I going to say this out loud to people? And what are they going to say? And are they going to judge me?
But that's the ultimate opener to a TED Talk. I have 3 Olympic medals, and I'm disappointed.
I actually
Welcome to my TED Talk.
She should have started like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite confident enough to own it quite like that. But yeah, I think really the only, and I said it to my husband, or the first time I met him, like the first night we had a conversation, I admitted I felt comfortable to he was an elite athlete too, and I felt comfortable to say that. But yeah, I just felt like I would burst into tears and I wouldn't know why. And whether I would be at work in the bathroom and I would just start crying. Our office had clear windows, which was terrible for that type of thing. But yeah, I think it was just, I appreciated people in my life for not kind of forcing me into that and just kind of letting me kind of flail for a few years. I almost think that was necessary evil part of the healing. But yeah, I just, even now, I think I write this in the book, like I'm never going to look back on certain things and be like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Right.
There's just, and I think that's most people, like there's certain parts or certain things that might happen in your life where it's just going to still be a little painful. And I think that's just okay. You just have to learn from it.
Well, Caroline Burkle, who was just here, who you lived with when you lived in California, you guys were roommates. How long did you live with Caroline?
We lived together for almost 2 years. And then I was still living, because I was in city of Orange, so Newport, city of Orange. And then she was still living in Santa Monica, so I would drive up all the time. So she was talking about the traffic today. I was like, oh, I remember when I drive up on Saturday afternoon to visit you.
But Caroline, who's been on the show a couple times, big podcast favorite, she talks about being this kind of feeling athlete. Like for her, it's all about emotions and how she feels. And the sense that I get from you is that you're quite the opposite. Like you're like, here's the set that I'm doing, and here are the numbers that I have to hit, and here's where my heart rate has to be, and here's how many hours of sleep I have to get. And your confidence is derived from checking those boxes like we talked about before, right? Like as long as I do these things, then I can stand up on the blocks and feel confident about my ability to execute in this race. And I guess with that comes a sort of detachment from that emotional self that is kind of Caroline's fuel. And reckoning with, the kind of wake of your career is requiring you to be a little bit more like Caroline, right? And like wrestle with some uncomfortable emotions, because you can't be like that robotic approach served you well in some regard as an athlete, but as a human being, it truncates your ability to kind of mature and work through all of that.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I've actually never thought of it like that, but yeah, it's actually funny when Caroline and I lived together, we'd be having conversations about sets, or it was like we were speaking two different languages.
She doesn't even know what the qualifying times are or anything.
What were my paces in practice? I'm like 27.15 and 20, so I was, and I think that, that started very young at 13, 14. I actually never forget so Eddie Reese, Olympic coach, just retired, and he's one of the first people I remember going to an Olympic camp, pre-Olympic camp, and he was like, all right, we're going to do these 100-yard swims, and they're just strong. And that was like a nightmare.
Like, what?
Like,
what does that mean?
Strong? Can you be more specific? Like to the 100th, and he was like, you're 13 years old, just go, But that was just never how I operated. Like I had a whiteboard in my house with covered in times, like down to the 100th. And that is, I think, from a very young age where I derived all my confidence from. And so you're right, when there were no splits, there was no specific, here's the order that you do things, here's how you go about this in a very structured way, I felt like I was in a free fall. And not having had the tools to really handle the emotion, because even after 2008, I didn't really handle how Beijing went.
No, you just move forward. Forward. Compartmentalize.
Yeah, and wonder why those 4 years were probably one of the toughest times of my life, because everything is just shoved down and, okay, like what times do I need to go now, and how much cardio do I need to do, and all those things that I just clung to.
So that's why I look at all of this as this, obviously, I'm sure you would have liked your career to have gone differently, but it does, like what occurred provides you with this amazing growth opportunity to kind of look at yourself in a way that maybe had everything gone the way that you wanted it to, you would never really do because you wouldn't be compelled to, right?
For sure.
So ultimately, you can become this more self-actualized individual by really, not trying to deny it or look away from it, but actually going towards it.
Yeah, and I think that's what I eventually came to and what really helped me move forward. And I still have my days, but I think, like you said, self-actualized, understanding what I went through, understanding the struggle, and really being able to talk to, young individuals, entrepreneurs, right? That if I just had gone and won 5 gold medals, win, I probably would never have taken a look inside and understood, okay, how do you hit rock bottom? Seemingly you're rock bottom, and get back up, and what do you do, and how do you fight, and all of those things that I think now I can speak to someone on a very vulnerable and authentic level and connect with them, because people experience that all the time.
Yeah.
And
it makes you much more accessible and relatable,
Yes.
I think, in that regard. But I also look at it, I'm somebody who's been in recovery for a long time, and the way I kind of look at addiction or any kind of like errant behavior where you're living out of alignment with a better version of yourself is that the universe begins to knock gently and says, hey, maybe you should take a look at this thing that you're pretending doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And you ignore it and you ignore it. And you're like, I'm going to buckle down. I'm just going to keep doing it my way. And you can get a certain level of success with that. But then it'll knock again. Be like, hey, yeah, I'm still here. You're still not looking over here. You know what I mean? Until eventually that knock becomes undeniable, or your whole life falls apart and you're just forced to. And, I've had that with substance, but when I look at your career, I'm like, oh, there were certain things that kind of happened along the way where maybe you could have, course corrected a little bit, but it's like, no, I'm going to keep doing it my way. And then it's like, okay, that's not working out. Now it's, it's a stomach issue, right? At some meet you had, and then the blood clot thing, and it's like it had to actually get completely pulled out from underneath you in order for you to kind of like deal.
Yeah. I know the 2012 trials, like, just I've never had a worse stomach feeling. Never been able to not eat. Like, I remember people were like, "You're just nervous." I'm like, no, this is my 3rd Olympic trials. I'm not nervous. I feel so ill. And now looking back, that's the one thing I'm like, why? Like, why? Like, I didn't feel like, I thought I could swim through it, and it didn't make a lot of sense. And, ended up not making the team because of that. And at that point, that was probably in the thick of me flailing. I just had not dealt with so many things after 2008, and had no idea who I was in terms of identity, and then, make a comeback, finally feel like I had made strides. I think I had been a better partner in a coaching athlete relationship. I had empowered myself a lot more. I was in a really healthy relationship. And then, blood clot thing happened.
Like,
so
still need to,
the universe was
still
like,
need to knock.
You're like halfway there. So.
Right. We'll be back in a sec, but first, if you dig this podcast, and I hope you dig this podcast, then I think you'll really enjoy my latest book, Voicing Change, featuring excerpts from, poignant essays by, and glorious photography of some 50 of my favorite guests over the last 8+ years of doing this thing, this podcast. It's a gorgeous, artful compendium of the show and copious wisdom shared therein, all wrapped in a hardcover coffee table form that provides a great taste of what we do here at the RRP and serves as a beautiful keepsake or gift for the ardent fan. The book is only and exclusively available on our website. Signed copies are available, and we are shipping globally direct to any coffee table on planet Earth. So to learn more and snag your copy today, visit richroll.com/VC. That's richroll.com/VC. All right, let's get back into it. Well, for people that aren't familiar with your career, we should probably walk through it a little bit so they understand what we're talking about. But I want to go back to the beginning. So first of all, your parents met at Stanford, right?
Yeah.
And your mom was like this high point basketball player, high point scoring to this day, right? Like she was a crazy star on the Stanford women's basketball team.
Yeah, she was a beast. It was cool in 2004 when, Palo Alto is where the camp is held for the Olympics. I was able to actually go and see her name on the list. And at that time, she was 3rd-time all-point scorer at the time.
Oh, and like Arriaga, the alumni center where they have all the sports stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually a funny story. When my mom got that point total that got her on the list, my dad decided to run onto the court with flowers in the middle of the game to give her.
Wow.
Which,
oh my
if you
God.
knew my dad, you would not. It's very out of character for him. And my mom was happy, but also like, the clock's still running. Like, what are you doing?
There has to be video of that.
I don't think there is. I've asked so
Really?
many times. Like, that was in the day where, I mean, now we'd have it on
Yeah,
cell
now we
phones
would
and-
for sure. I'd be surprised. What year? So wait, what years were your parents at Stanford?
So my mom, she would have been 78 to 82.
Okay.
And my dad actually, he went to Purdue, but he did his master's at
I see.
Stanford.
Uh-huh.
And they actually met. They were both, which my mom's coach was not happy about this after the fact, but they both did, not bungee jumping, but they jumped out of a plane and did the whole free fall thing. And my dad came down and landed on his ankle, twisted his ankle. And my mom went, it's so cute. My mom went and, stayed with him in the hospital for the day. And that's how they met.
That's cute.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, if there was video of him running out with the flowers, you could edit that together with the video of how
Todd running out?
Yeah, exactly. How
Todd
you
running out
guys got
proposing to
engaged.
me. Yeah, I know. I feel like I need to try to do more digging because that would be really cool. That's actually crazy. I've never thought of it like that. They both ran out.
Yeah. So I showed up at Stanford in 85, so I just missed them.
Oh, okay.
But that's how close I am to your parents' age, which is embarrassing. But then what's interesting is you're homeschooled. So you're
Yeah.
born in Palo Alto, right? And then you're homeschooled all the way through high school.
Pretty much. There was a period of time in kindergarten and fourth grade where I demanded to go to school because I just wanted to see what it was all about. And I was like, okay, well.
And what was that about for your parents?
It started that when I was going to be going in middle school, first grade, second grade, the school system wasn't great. And so my mom kind of begrudgingly was like, okay, you can go, but I don't feel great about this school system.
Were you living in Maryland already at that time?
We were in Virginia. So we moved from
okay.
Palo Alto to Virginia when I was 5.
Right.
And yeah, it just kind of was something that my mom was going to homeschool my brother and I. And then it kind of morphed into, well, this is actually working out really nice with swimming, my schedule. It's not as stressful. And my brother ended up going to middle school in public school, and then he was in public school throughout that time. But I liked it. I felt like I got my social from my swim group. I still got to go to homecoming and prom with friends. And so for me, it was just like I watched these kids so stressed, not getting enough sleep. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stay homeschooled.
So where does swimming enter the picture? Pretty young.
Young, but entered at 5, but like summer league.
Right.
It lasted a year because I was the tiniest little kid and I was freezing all the time. And I told my mom, I'm done. So didn't swim when I was 6.
Which summer league pool did you swim for?
I swam at the Kings Point Dolphins in
Heard of
Williamsburg,
that.
Virginia.
Yeah. Okay. So you're further south because I grew up in Bethesda. So I know that whole, what is it, MCSL, like summer league circuit of all the summer
It's
pools.
big there.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Like very competitive.
Yeah. It was everything. And parents were intense about it and kids were intense about it. But I just kind of hadn't found, like, I was definitely a neurotic little kid. Like, literally from like if an arm was out of place in my doll lineup, like I would have a meltdown. So I was very obsessive compulsive, but I wasn't.
Which goes in hand with the whole splits and being like very controlling about the whole thing.
Yeah, it all lines up. I actually heard that story for the first time from my dad like 3 weeks ago. I was like, really? I did it? He's like, yeah, like it was a thing.
It was a thing. Wow.
And then, so then I kind of missed it and had friends doing it. And 7 is when I went to the year round where it was still twice a week.
But still, that's pretty young for year round to get into the year round thing.
Definitely. Yeah. And at that point, I still wasn't getting it. Like I was not.
Still, it's so interesting to say still. You're freaking 7 years old.
All right. At that point, I'll take still. At that point, I wasn't, I was cheating, like, which I hate telling this because it just hurts me to my core. But the coach we'd be doing walking lunges around the pool, and the coach would turn her head and I would do like a little mini run, or we'd be in the middle of like a 50-meter pool trying to swim, and my mom would say I would stop and turn around, but there's no one behind me to like get a break.
Right. So you're the kind of person who looks at that and thinks, if I hadn't cheated when I was 7, maybe things would have been different.
Not that extreme. I just cringed at it because I just, I hate that. And then I kind of had this moment where my friends, obviously they were beating me, but I remember thinking like, wait, like, I don't know when it clicked, but it was just like, wait, like they're beating me and this is a race and I don't like that. And I think that was around probably 8, just turned 9. And it was a very big shift. Like it was suddenly like, okay, like how do I win?
This is unacceptable.
This is unacceptable. Yeah. Like how do I become the best? How do I beat them? And that's when I talk about this moment a ton, is I had this moment in practice where I kind of figured out how to reach this extra, I call deep down gear.
And at 10, you decide, I'm going to the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah. Because at 9, I made, like, the progress was crazy. Like, I decide, okay, I want to start beating people. I learned how to kind of work hard and reach that uncomfortable level of pain in practice.
At 9. Yeah.
Didn't know what that was yet, but told my dad I found the deep down gear. And he's like looking at, I feel like so many times my parents probably looked at me like, who is this child?
Right. It's almost like a weird past life thing, right? Like, how are you at 9 to have the self-awareness, like, oh, I have to really push myself,
Yeah.
Like it's almost like your brain's not even mature enough to understand that equation.
No. Well, especially now that, I work with young kids, and I didn't think it was weird until I started working with people and not hearing that a lot. And I'm like, oh, that was kind of unique, or I won't say weird, but a little strange that I was that conscious of that, and that conscious of even what pain is and pushing past pain. But the results were so immediately happening for me, which was, I think, lucky in some ways. Like I did the work, and then suddenly it was like, oh, now I'm top 2 in the state, and now I'm breaking state records, and the momentum just kind of flowed. Right.
So at 10, what was the epiphany in terms of the Olympics? Like, was there something on television, or was there somebody you were looking up to that
so
that light bulb went off?
2000, I had just turned 11, and that was when I remember we were on vacation at the beach, and we had the Olympics on. And I remember Caitlin Sandino was 17, and she was swimming the 400 IM, and I think she medaled in a couple of events. And I was like, wow, like, how cool is she? She has this cap, USA cap with her name on it. Like, I just was enamored by the whole thing, and not having any idea of how do you make an Olympic team? How did she get there? What did she do? I just was like, oh, I need to do that.
Yeah.
And of course, I think, every kid at that age says, like, I want to be an Olympian, and so I remember always being frustrated.
I don't think they do, though.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of kids are just having fun, or their parents are like, you need to get out of the house.
They're not like, all right, what's the time you got to make it? I guess maybe a little older, but I think I was saying it with, like, intent. Like, I was saying, like, okay, like, all right, so what's the next cut? What's the trials cut? What do I need to do? And
at 10, you're like, what's the trials cut?
I mean, I guess I got the trials.
Your parents must have been like, what is going on with this kid?
They definitely had to hold me back a little bit, because I remember at 11, I was angry as all get out, because the older kids were doing doubles, 2-a-days. And I was like, well, I need to be doing 2-a-days. Like, how can I be doing 2-a-days? And they were like, you have plenty of time in your life to be doing doubles. And so they held me back a little bit, but I mean, it was pretty hard once I was locked in. And yeah, I remember I made my first nationals at 12, and
that's crazy.
Yeah, and I didn't swim well, but
you must have been the youngest person by a long shot.
Yeah. I think at that nationals, the only reason I'm thinking
is young, like boys don't end up qualifying for nationals until like at the very early, like 16, maybe
Yeah.
a 15-year-old. Women, it tends to happen a little bit younger. There's the occasional 13-year-old, but I've never heard of a 12-year-old making nationals.
Yeah, I think the only other and there's been, it's like very spotty throughout the years. You know, Dana Vollmer, I remember she was at trials at 12 or something like that. But yeah, it was, again, it was rare, but in that instance, I just didn't.
You were like, of course.
I'm like, this is normal.
Yeah.
Like, and it was kind of good, I think, to be honest, that I didn't feel, no one made me feel like I was abnormal, or if they did, if they were like, I felt special. You know, I felt excited, like, wow, you know, I must be doing something pretty cool here. And I remember the boys that I swam with, because I swam with 15, 16-year-old boys, and boys, I say, they were definitely not men, boys, were jealous, or, you know, and that made me even more like, oh, like, I'm just going to be competitive about this. But at that meet in 2002, I watched Natalie Coughlin break the world record in the 100 backstroke and go under a minute for the first time. And I remember that even more so. I was like, oh, like Olympics, but like, oh, now there's a world record on the table. Like, that just kind of upped the ante for me in terms of really lighting the fire of, okay, I need to do all of these things now.
Yeah.
How do I do it?
Yeah. And at 15, you materialize all of this. You make your first Olympic team in 2004.
Yeah. Which even a year out, I did not expect that. You know, I obviously had the goal to make an Olympic team, but I remember sitting down a year out. My parents, we moved to Baltimore, a year out from 2004.
Was that specifically to join NBAC, or your dad got a job, or how did that work?
Half.
Yeah.
Half and half. At that time, I was doing well on my team in Virginia, but it was tough because, again, I was swimming with boys and I didn't really have any female training partners, and it just felt like we needed something more. And at the time, too, my dad was commuting to Maryland anyways, so we were like, let's give it a shot. And I clicked really well with Paul Yetter, who, you know, gave me exactly what my robot self wanted in terms of times. And I remember we drove up there for like a kind of a trial practice on a Saturday morning, and we were doing a set of 200s, and he showed me the piece of paper, and it was literal splits for each 200, and my eyes
You're like,
lit up.
This is my guy.
I was like, we are moving. You got me.
Yeah.
I'm sold. So,
What was interesting about reading about that in your book was that I guess I just assumed that if you're swimming at NBAC, you're swimming for Bob Bowman, and there's that one pool, right? And I didn't realize that it was more like the team that I swam for, Curl, where there's multiple pools around the region, and there's lots of different coaches, and you were swimming in this really shitty, tiny little pool, like 4 lanes,
Dingy.
and like,
it was called Night Diver. So there was like this.
It's like a scuba diving tank or
pretty
something.
much. It had this bubble over it, and I was coughing every night. Like, it was, you didn't roll up to this place with this bubble and think an Olympian's gonna come from this pool.
Right.
It was hot, but it was a group of 10 or 12 of us, and the girl, Courtney Kalish, her brother Chase is actually an Olympian now. We had met at a regional meet and hit it off really well, and you know, she was swimming really fast, and I felt like, okay, great, like I can have a female training partner. And so that was kind of the draw, as well as Paul, as having, you know, a girl that I could connect with and train with, and we became really good friends.
So you go to trials, you qualify in 2 events, 200 IM and 400 IM, right?
Yeah.
You're only 15 years old. That had to be, you know,
Surreal.
Very surreal. And then you're faced with the prospect of actually having to do it at the Olympics. I think people don't understand, like, it's all about trials, right? Like, your perspective doesn't really extend beyond that, because it's all about making the Olympic team. Then you make it, then you're like, oh shit, I've got to actually go to the Olympics now and swim. But you were so young, I can't imagine that there was a huge amount of expectation and pressure on you to like medal or win gold, you know, like win gold or anything like that.
The problem,
maybe on yourself, but externally.
I feel like, I mean, I'm very thankful that social media wasn't as big back then, 17 years ago. But I remember reading articles, and, you know, the day after trials was done, I was with this group of Tom Malchow and Caitlin Sandino, who I just watched 4 years earlier, to be in this big Sports Illustrated thing. So there was that. There was articles about medaling. So I felt like, at least at the time, it felt like, oh, okay, like now you're expected to win medals for the U.S. and maybe win gold. And but you're so right. I was the year out, I was obsessed with just making top 8. That's all I wanted to do. I was like, I need to make top 8 so that in 2008, I'm prepared with the experience. Once again, I'm prepared with the experience of swimming in an Olympic trials final. And then, I drop a ton of time. I win both events. And then, it was like, oh my God, that means I have to go swim at the Olympics and do this all over again. And, be away from my coach who I clung to. He wasn't able to come and be, on the staff or anything like that. And then be away from my parents for 6 weeks, which I'd never even been out of the country.
Yeah.
So I was a just turned 15-year-old, but I was a very naive, looked like I was 12, 15-year-old. And just was in over my head.
Yeah. One of the things you talk about in your book is like not exactly getting the kind of support that you wish that you could have had as a young person.
Yeah. And it's funny, I've talked to so many people at USA Swimming now, and they've been so great about saying like things are so different now in the way that we support, newcomers on the team, or even the building of the World Junior Team, where it allows young people to go and travel the world as a national junior teamer. And they had that when I was at that age, but it wasn't as prolific. It wasn't as, hey, you need to do this, because those things matter. That experience helps you feel confident when you're in a ready room with all these different people from all these different countries. To me, it felt like the Hunger Games. It just felt like what's happening. But I think another thing is now looking back, I don't really expect it, because everyone is facing their own struggles. Coaches, athletes, it's the Olympics. It's the ultimate. And so I think it's very difficult to step outside of yourself and see that someone else is struggling. I think, and there are people that did it, and I shouted them out, like Gary Hall Jr., Jason Lezak.
Yeah.
To do that in that pressure cooker that is the Olympic Games, I think it's above and beyond.
Yeah.
And I do wish that maybe I'd had someone understand what was going on and intervene, or if I had felt confident to say, hey, I need some support. I'm kind of floundering here, but I just don't think that was there at the time. And I think that everyone was just trying to forge ahead.
Yeah.
And
Well, everyone's thinking about their own shit. You know? Like they've
100%.
got their own races to worry about. Do you know who Alexi Pappas is?
Yeah, she was a guest.
Yeah, she was a guest. So she is an Olympian track and field athlete, competed for Greece in the 10,000 meters, I think. But she's also an actress, a writer, director, producer. And and she made this film called Olympic Dreams. That's a fictionalized account of not really her story, but the story of a young female athlete who goes to the Winter Olympic Games as a cross-country skier, and has kind of a not so great experience, and the emotions of contending with that, where her coach is not there and she feels very alone. And when you were recounting that story, I was like, oh, you got to watch this movie.
Yeah. I'm sure I could relate to it very much so. Yeah, looking back and even I think being outside of it, you have conversations with people that make you go, oh, wow, how did I do that? Like people talk about what they were doing at 15 and I'm, about to walk out in a final or for the Olympics. But in that moment, it's fight or flight. Am I going to run or am I going to face this? And I just remember just terror, just full on terror, just sitting there. And I used to do this thing where people would, if someone was walking by, I'd look at them and be like, I kind of wish I was just could trade places with that person for just 10 minutes, just for this race to be done. Which is
but you don't know what's going on in that person's mind. It could be the same thing. It could be a nightmare inside inside their head.
So not a good game, but that was just how much I, in that moment, wanted to flee. It was just, I hadn't kind of developed that system of confidence, and I feared the 400 IM for the longest time because I just felt like I had messed up so many times or taken it out too fast and died. And there was just like this, I viewed it as like this mountain that just kept beating me, and I could never get back to the top.
Yeah, and you don't end up medaling. You get 7th in the 200 IM and 17th in the 400, right?
Throw up all over the pool deck.
What's that? Throwing up. That's okay.
Yeah,
you know. But the following year, I mean, look, Michael Phelps went to the Olympics at 15 and didn't medal.
Yeah.
People forget that. Like, they just think it's all golds all the time. But when at his first Olympics, I remember when that happened and everyone's like, oh, he's the future. But it's not like he won a gold medal first time out. So you go home, and the following year you sign this like 10-year deal with Speedo, and you go pro, and suddenly you're buying cars and like handbags and stuff. And like, it's all good, right? The world is your oyster because it's all going to be about the next Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a crazy year because, I came home from Athens, kind of licked my wounds a little bit, but there was never a feeling of like, I'm done, or I don't know if I can do this. It was just redemption. It was like, I want to show people that wasn't a fluke, that, just.
But it's interesting you use the word redemption. Like, what did you feel like you had to redeem? Because you didn't medal? Like, you were only 15.
But that was, for me, I had flat out failed. Like, the articles that were coming out that I shouldn't have read. I remember specifically, actually someone else told me this because I think I blocked it out, but all the computers were in the basement in the village. And after the 400 IM, I masochistically go on and look on the internet, and I saw just this flurry of just negativity and how I failed and how I fell on my face, and just kind of lost it and burst into tears.
From like no-name people or like rowdy and stuff?
From there was a couple people that I, very much looked up to that were saying really, really hurtful things. And that just, I'm so happy that social media was not that way in 2004, because I don't know if I think it would have been a lot harder to overcome. You'd
be in your dorm room scrolling. Like,
just look, And I think, for the longest time, the picture of me throwing up on the pool deck at 15 years old was the first thing that popped up on images when you searched my name. And my parents had to ask them to take it down. At 15, that's now 15-year-olds are like, well, my hair's messed up in that one picture, edit it, right? This was me so that was very traumatizing. But yeah, I viewed it as I've let everybody down. Like, we had a party. I remember a welcome home party when I got back, and I was miserable. Like, I don't think people knew, but I didn't feel deserving. I was like, which I know it's like when I say it, it's crazy, but I was like, I failed. Like, I didn't medal, even though I'm 7th in the world at 15. Why are these people here? Like, everyone should just leave. Like, I need to get back to work and redeem myself. That's, and maybe that was. And
also the compartmentalization too.
Yeah.
Like, that's in the past. I'm putting that away. I'm moving forward. Here's what I have in front of me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it worked for the time being. It was, my coach, Paul, and I sat down, and it was like, all right, well, you need to figure out how to not be fearful of the 400 IM, because it's truly messing with you.
Yeah. But it is terrifying.
It's the most painful race. Like, no one is in the ready room. I have a joke with Elizabeth Beisel, who's a fellow Olympian, 400 IMer, amazing, got the silver in 2012. And or we call it like the 400 IM stomach. Like, it's just a very specific feeling before and after that. If you were plopped into a situation not having done the 400 IM and someone was like, what's this feeling? You'd be like, oh, I'm about
Somebody's going to turn your insides out completely.
It's never going to be, whether it's an amazing race, a terrible race, you gain 50 seconds, you drop 20, is always going to be the most painful thing ever. And I actually have come up, we're talking to one of our executives at my old company, and I was like, yeah, it's the 400 IM analogy. And he was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, you don't do the 400 IM because, like, no, if you pretend in the ready room of the 400 IM that you're like, yes, I'm so excited to swim this race. Like, you're excited for the result, but like you're not,
Yeah.
if you pretend it's not there, just pushing it down and ignoring it is almost more emotional energy than just saying, wow, this is going to suck and this is super painful. And that doesn't mean I'm being negative because I'm doing this because I'm trying to break records and go best times. But by embracing that in anything and acknowledging it, it makes it that much easier to attack and go after.
Right. But what you just said is like a corollary for your life at the same time, right? The idea of ignoring the difficulty or the pain of the 400 IM is almost a stand-in for like that idea of how ultimately compartmentalizing these things doesn't work out, right? You have to like acknowledge, right?
You're saying I just don't take my own advice?
No, I'm just saying like, no, what I'm saying, I think you're doing it now, but what you just said in terms of the 400 IM is kind of what we're talking about in terms of life as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I did not use the 400 IM analogy when I stopped swimming, for sure. Like I didn't turn and acknowledge things. And yeah, I did not take my own advice. But
right.
In just the 400 IM situation,
yeah, I get you.
I was good at acknowledging that. But you're right. I think so many things that I did really well in my career didn't necessarily translate and benefit when swimming was done.
Right. So you're on your way, though. 2007, you set your first world record in Melbourne. You have your Natalie Coughlin moment, right? 7 years after that idea was incepted into your brain. And then in 2008, like, here we go. Like, everything becomes insane.
Yeah. And I could feel it building, it's like you're kind of like click, click, click. And I hate roller coasters, and I've been manipulated and forced to be on a couple. But it truly felt like that building.
Ratcheting up.
Yeah, like 2007. I mean, 2007 is probably one of my favorite years just because I felt like every time I got in the water, it wasn't even like a question in my mind. It was just like, if I was behind, if I was not feeling great, it was like, oh, so? Like, I just knew, like, I had this confidence that it was just going to happen. And that feeling carried over, into 2008 leading up. But the problem was it just kept building. And every time I did a great swim or broke a record or I swam at this, like, dinky meet and broke the American record in the 1650 when it was supposed to just be a training swim. Like, it was almost
That's not even your event.
No, like it just I kept kind of going like, what is happening? Like everything's going well, but
who held that record? Was that a Janet Evans record?
It might have been. I don't know. Like I remember like people were making fun of me because
now you sound like Caroline.
I know, you're right.
I thought you would have known that.
I should have known. I should know. Well, because it was the mile. I wasn't even. So it was that I almost was kind of adding on to the expectation every time I got in. I'm breaking records and doing this.
Like each success just adds to the pressure and the expectations that ultimately you're going to have to shoulder in Beijing.
Yeah. And I remember as, 6 months out, 3 months out, more interviews. And I remember saying the words, but inside kind of freaking out, like, and not knowing who to admit that to, because I was so like, if I admit this, like, I'm kind of freaking out. Like, this is a lot. Like, I haven't even won an Olympic medal yet. And everyone's swimming a lot of events, same as Michael. And I just remember thinking, okay, like, just take it one thing at a time. At trials, I'm swimming a ton of events. So I remember saying, even if everything goes wrong, I'll at least make it in one event. Like, that was kind of like what I'm saying.
Escape hatch, like it'll be okay. But meanwhile, you are starting to freak out.
Yeah.
And I feel like sport has come a long way in even the last decade in terms of reckoning with the mental aspects of elite performance and recognizing that, coaches, parents, therapists, whoever need to be, checking in more on the emotional component here. But maybe at that time it hadn't gotten to that point, and it's just like, are you good? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, we've talked about that now, right?
Yeah.
Without really understanding, like, oh man,
this is a lot.
What's it like for a 19-year-old to suddenly be thrust into this position where so much attention is being placed, and expectations are being placed on you?
Yeah, and I think, now talking to even my parents, my parents were wonderful throughout my career. They let me in the driver's seat. They were supportive. My dad was the hype man. I'd come back from practice like, Dad, I hit these paces. You'd just be like, yes, that's amazing. My mom was the more sensible, reel it in, like it hasn't happened yet. She was the analytical one. But I don't think my mom even says now, she's like, I didn't know how to stop the train from going as fast as it was. It was just like, go, 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 go. The Today Show's here 3 months out. I'm sitting down with Matt Lauer one-on-one. Like, what was happening? And you can see it. I watched that interview with him for the first time when I put it in my book. Like, I'd never seen it. And I can just see I can see what I'm saying, but I can see the look on my face. And you can tell inside I'm like, whew, all right, And
was that before trials or?
It was before trials.
Right.
Yeah, it was I think it was like 6 weeks before trials. He came and, I just felt like the best analogy I always give is like, there's a barbell on my back. It's 45 pounds. I can walk around all day with that on my back. But it was just like each day it was like, here's that, another 5,
another 5 pounds,
another 5, another 5. And, and I think I put so much emotional energy, as any athlete does, into trials because it was every single day, a big event schedule right out of the gate. And that I remember finishing trials and going, I have to do that all over again.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So you go to trials, you qualify in 4 individual events. How many of those did you win? Did you win all of them?
Yeah.
You won. You got 4 first places at trials. 200 IM, 400 IM, 200 free,
400 free, 800 free.
400 free. Oh, 5 event. 5, right. 5.
And the only, it's like one of those stars aligning moments.
So you're no longer getting 5-pound weights added onto that
it's like
barbell.
45
yeah,
pounds
like
a
you're
day.
getting. Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like I was doing it to myself. I mean, in a good way, right? I was swimming out of my mind with, and so many of the races were close. The 200 free, I think it was 7, 8 100s in between me, and then there was a super close race in the 200 IM between Natalie and Ariana, and I'll never forget being so mad because I did the first day I did the 400, the second day I did 400 IM, the second day I did the 400 free. So 2 days in, I'm already 4 400s of racing in. The next 2 days, I have 6 200s between the 2.
Yeah, I think people that aren't familiar with swimming don't understand. It's not you're not swimming 5 times. You're swimming like 15 times or something,
right?
I
think it was 15 times.
You have to swim prelim, semis, and finals. Except maybe in the 800, do you do
prelims and finals?
Yeah, there's only 2 for that, right?
There's only 2 for the 400s as well. Too,
oh, okay.
So, but it was just, again, like the U.S. is such a force that there was no taking it easy, or you had to be A game.
Yeah.
When you're going against those people, and so, I left the trials. I won 5. I think Michael won 5, and the media was like, "Yes."
Right here we have our tightly knit narrative. Like, you are the female Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very easy story to tell. It's very it's very appealing to the public because everybody wants to know who the female Michael Phelps is going to be, and you won 5 events. You won 5 events. Like, who else is it going to be, right?
Yeah, it was fair.
So here we go. Yeah.
It was fair, but also if you, obviously.
But it sets you up. If you don't win as many gold medals as Michael, then you've failed.
Yes. And I will say, in my defense, I think he had 4 world records at that point of his, and I had 1, and I was trading the world record with another girl,
right.
Stephanie Rice. And so I didn't feel like, like I'm going in ranked first and everything. There were so many other competitors.
The average public doesn't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't know anything about that.
So.
Yeah, and we should also point out that Michael was your teammate. Like, he's swam at NBAC and
both the Olympics at 15.
Right, for people that don't follow swimming.
Yeah. It was too easy.
How... Does somebody ask you, like, every single day what it was like to swim with Michael Phelps?
Like, I get it's literally like line of questioning goes, it depends on how curious they're. Like, you swam? Oh my gosh. Like,
do you know Michael Phelps?
Do you know Michael?
Yeah.
Or
yes.
Sometimes
what's
just,
he like?
Did you swim?
Yeah.
And then assuming you know Michael Phelps. Or they find out, you swam in the Olympics? Like, wait. I'm like, here we go.
Right.
Michael? Yes. And then, so that's definitely,
So how do you answer that?
I go, yeah.
Depends on the company, I would assume. Like,
Depends on the company. I usually will just say yes. And I mean, Michael's an awesome guy. And so I always, I think he's been through a lot, and there's a lot of things that have happened in his career, good and, maybe not so great. And so I always use the opportunity to be like, yeah, he's an awesome guy and been through a lot. And I always like to use the opportunity to do that, because sometimes I think it's similarly very unfair how,
Oh, can you imagine? I mean, yes, you can. You're one of the few people who can actually imagine what that guy had to endure. Of course, there were going to be moments where he was going to crack under that kind of pressure.
Anyone would.
But what he's done in the wake of all of that is so inspiring.
Very much so. Yeah, he and I was really happy to get to reconnect with him for my book, and we were able to talk a little bit, because my heart feels so much for him. Because like you said, I can understand it, but I can't. Like, I can understand a fraction of what he feels, and just having been his teammate, in 2009, we swam together when he was going through a really tough time, and so was I. But yeah, I just think it's super unfair sometimes, the expectations and the, place we put certain people on this pedestal, and it's not fair. It's just not fair.
Yeah, well, we like to put people on that pedestal. We like to hoist them up, and then we want to look for how to pull them down.
Yeah.
And any opportunity that we can, people line up for that. Unfortunately, that's the way culture works.
Yeah.
But then we also like when they come back.
Yeah, the comeback.
And he's done that as well. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so you go to Beijing with just this unbelievable amount of pressure and expectations being placed on you. And you talk about this in the book, like things don't go to plan.
Yeah.
You end up walking away with 3 medals out of this experience, but you don't get any golds, and you fail to make the final in the 800 free. Like, things just didn't work out the way that they could have, and maybe they should have. I don't know. Like, how do you look back on that and think about that time?
Yeah, I think I always wonder, if the 400 IM had gone maybe a little better. Like, what if I had won gold in the 400 IM?
Right. Like, you got silver, you were basically touched out.
The 400 free, yeah, I got touched out.
Right.
But the 400 IM, I actually look at the 400 IM as one of my best swims of the meet, because yes, I got bronze, but I was within a half a second of the time I did at trials, which was the time that broke the world record at the time. And it was just on that day.
But those other 2 girls went under 430 for the first time, right?
Yeah, and I remember in the race thinking I must be doing terribly, because they're, I can't even see, she's 2 seconds ahead of me, and then when I touched, I go, oh, okay, like that actually was a great swim for me. But instead of thinking that way, you go through the little mixed zone right after you finish, and it's, are you happy? Like, the media's questioning me, what are you good with that? You got bronze, right at the gate. And then, it didn't really have the support I needed from coaches, from my coach afterwards. And so I think that really started the meet off on the wrong foot. And it felt like, I think after that I started scrambling, and, the 400, I get touched out. Funny enough, the 200 free, I break the American record. I go best time. It just happens to be that I get 4th.
Yeah.
And once again, so every time
Doesn't
I kind of had a good, wow, that was a really good swim for you personally. It was, what happened? That was a fail. You didn't win gold.
And you just feel like that boulder is rolling downhill in the wrong direction. Like, there's a momentum with that, right?
For sure. Just
and like, you can't catch your breath, because like every session you've got 1 or 2 swims.
Yeah. And I think that's actually where compartmentalizing skill came in handy, because it was like every time something happened, it was just, you literally have 3 hours until you need to go back to the pool, and you need to get up again and go for it. And represent your country. But there were times where I'm caking on eyeliner because I had just balled my eyes out and I didn't want them to be puffy.
Right.
So people saw that I was crying.
Yeah. You talked about how you hate when you parade around the deck and you got to wave and smile and all of that. And you're like, I'm just here to race, man. I don't want to do this dog and pony show.
I wish I was more like, I remember talking about that with someone. They were like, then why do you wave? I'm like, well, that's what people want.
Right.
They want
if you don't, then they're like, what's wrong with her?
Yeah, like, what's wrong with that girl? She must be cold, So
she's not a patriot.
Yeah. So I always was kind of like, all right, here we go. I'm going to smile and wave. But yeah, I was cap goggles on first. I wanted my stuff off first so I could be behind the blocks, the first one.
Right.
So I was extra ready.
And Beijing was the pinnacle of the fast skin supersuit era, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like Speedo opened Pandora's box with, and then all the other suits came with.
So it was like a crazy onslaught of world records just being set all over the place. Constantly. And everybody realized, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. They've really put that back in the box, though. I would have thought, well, once that's out, there's no way we can go backwards.
We really did.
We did.
Yeah. It just
and all those records have been broken since.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. So that's, I think that also normalized, okay, so you get an American record and then turn free. Well, what's that?
Right.
I think to the American public, because it was world record every second, it normalized it that people didn't think that was anything special. I didn't in the moment. I didn't even know. Someone was like, I had it, so it was just going a best time, but someone had to remind me, hey, I think that was... But I had the 200 IM 30 minutes later, so I didn't really have time to think or, even understand how I was feeling or how I was supposed to feel.
So when does it all land on you? When you're done swimming and you have the opportunity to go, what just happened?
I think about 50% of the way when I checked out of the village when we were done with racing everything, because 2004 I was shipped home immediately.
Right, you're too young to handle.
I'm too young to handle
the village shenanigans,
and all of that stuff. So this time I was hell bent. I was like, oh, I am staying. I'm enjoying. I want to see all the events. I want to go out with everybody. And so I checked out, and I think I was shoving things down because I'm like, well, I had, sponsor stuff to do. I had to smile. And I remember the next day we had an event with Speedo. And I remember having these brief fleeting moments of I don't feel like I belong here. I was looking around and looking at Natalie and Michael and Ryan and all these people that had won gold medals. And I'm like, okay, well, who's the person who's that outsider? Me. I always felt that way. And then I remember, okay, well, just forget about it. You need to enjoy. So I'd have these moments of sadness, in my hotel room by myself, and then we would go out, and then we would go to different events, and I would smile, but it was still I wasn't allowing myself to feel. And then I remember coming home, I don't feel like I ever fully grieved, to be honest with you. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was just moments here and there where I would feel off, or I'd have this pit in my stomach, or I would do an interview with another athlete and just feel not good enough. And I would always go by gold medal. I'm like, well, I have a silver, they have a gold. So, and it didn't even hit me that I felt that way until I watched the Winter Olympics, and they announced someone, and they were like, silver medalist. I was like, wow, she's a badass. And I remember being like, oh, wait, I have a silver medal. That's how people look at that. But at the time, I would get picked up by a car service, and he would be like, oh, an Olympian, did you win gold? And I would have to say no. Or it would be like, did you win a medal? That's the first question. Yeah, I did. Did you win gold? No. Oh, bummer. And that would just, that was like a dagger to the heart for me in that.
Right. The car service guy has an opinion.
Great. Great. And at that point I was so
couldn't live up to the expectations of the guy who's giving you a ride. So my life must be meaningless.
But at that point I was so fragile with all of that anyone. I mean, it didn't matter if it was an armchair critic. It didn't, like, I was just so fragile. And then at the same time, I was, deciding whether I was going to move from the coach that got me to 2 Olympics. So it was tough.
Yeah. I mean, in the wake of 2008, I mean, basically the next 6 years are just kind of fits and starts. Like, you're moving around a lot, you're switching coaches, you stop working with Paul, you start working with Bob, you move to Florida to pick it back up with Paul again, and then you're in Los Angeles living with Caroline and the whole Sean Hutchinson thing and John Urbanchek and all of that. And it just feels like, I mean, I don't know that we need to kind of go through every aspect of that, but my sense of it is just fits and starts where you can't really find your groove, right? And just it's never really clicking. You have moments where you feel like you're on your way back and you have a race where you're, in good form, but it never really comes together for you. And that's a lot of years to be kind of feeling like out of tune with, the way that you used to feel, where everything was just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, that was tough. And now looking back, you do that analysis, like, what could I have done differently? I mean, I really think a lot of it was that I had so much emotional baggage that it just kept resurfacing.
Yeah.
And I just don't think, I ever built that confidence back that, 2008 felt like I got the wind knocked out of me. 2009, I fought all the way from, I don't even make a, Olympic or World Championship team, which was the next team the year later. So then it was like sink further. I just felt like I was like in this hole, and like dirt was continually coming in, and I was trying to claw my way out, and I just never feel like I did.
Yeah.
And then all the while feeling like walking around the pool deck, feeling like I just don't, like, people must be thinking that way. People must be thinking, oh, she's washed up, or she's...
That's a lot of energy to expend on that, too.
Yeah.
Like, I think in hearing you say that, I wonder, what do you think would have happened if after 2008, you just took a whole year off and you had a coach who said, I'm not even letting you get in the water until we, like, process everything that happened. And we're going to work through all of this, and I'm not letting you off the hook.
I feel like it was the best thing ever.
And then like a year later, you just started a very slow rebuild. Oh. It would have been impossible, because you would have been like, there's no way I'm staying out of the water for a year. Like,
I'm not saying it was swim.
feasible, but just as an academic exercise, as a thought experiment.
Yeah, I think it would have been probably one of the healthiest things I could have done, because I finished 2009 and I almost thought about stopping. Like, I was...
Of course.
Yeah, I know, shocking. But at the time I thought, like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, I am flat out miserable. I'm crying every single day. Like, it just wasn't...
And you have 3 medals from the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even want... I mean, they were, like, in, like, a little, like, bag, like, in my nightstand, like, that I just didn't want to...
My name is Katie Hoff, and I have 3 Olympic medals, and I'm ashamed of myself. Welcome to my TED Talk.
That's such a great opening for a talk. I'm going to give you credit for that one. But yeah, I just, and all the while I'm still, I'm working with sponsors. So I'm talking about the Olympics and how amazing it is, and like how much I love everything. And again, 400 IM analogy. I'm pretending. I'm just pretending. And it just was not healthy.
Yeah. How do you think about the decision that you made to go pro at 16? Like, is there a part of you that wishes, like, you'd gone to college and had the whole NC2A experience?
I think there's definitely, there's grass is always greener, right? Like, I think there's positives and negatives to both. The decision to go pro early, I feel actually really good about, because I think, while I didn't have... I do, the teammates that you make on a college team, I think are forever, the friendships you build. But I also feel like my wedding, 5 of the 6 women in my wedding party were swimmers, and 4 of them were Olympians. So I think I've built those bonds. But I think the experiences of getting to go pro early, because I didn't know at the time, but I wasn't going to be swimming and, sponsored into my 30s. to work with some of the companies I worked with, the experiences I got, getting to go on a tour of China with Visa. There's so many memories that I think I had and that really shaped me as a person that I actually really think was valuable to me as a person and in my career. And I don't actually think that there wasn't a lot of pressure during that time, because I always looked at it like, well, I'm going to be trying to go after these things anyways. So why not, be compensated for the performances that I'm doing? But I definitely think that would have made what you just said of taking the year off really difficult.
Yeah.
Because
Well, Speedo wouldn't have allowed that. That's why I said it wasn't feasible.
Yeah. Would have been nice.
Right. But I think because of these experiences, it gives you a resonance that allows you to be really helpful to the next generation of athletes, or just to people in general. Like, hey, I have a black belt, in disappointment. And I know what it's like for my life to peak essentially at 17 and try to figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it's, what, I was talking to my mom the other day. I'm like, I feel like I've ripped off the Band-Aid so many times in just putting myself out there and just failing in a really large, I know it sounds...
It's not failure though.
Okay,
Yes,
it's not failure, but no, all right, I'll rephrase that. Putting myself out there and not living up to my expectations of what I was hoping the result would be. And so I feel like now I have a level of fearlessness where I'm like, well, if it doesn't work out, I know I'll get back up because I've done it time and time again. And I think sometimes people who haven't gone through that have this fear. And I've watched people close to me or people I know not make decisions or not take actions because they do have that fear of, what if it doesn't work out? Like, how am I going to respond? What am I going to do? I'm just like, well.
You could be, well, yeah, but what's beautiful about your experience is you can say, listen, I know what it's like when the whole world decided that I was going to be X and I failed to live up to that, and they all had opinions on that. Like, you're never going to be under that kind of a white hot spotlight again in your life. So you're kind of disaster proofed, right? You know what I mean? And there is a liberation in that if you look at it through that lens to say, hey man, like, I did that deal, and not only did I survive that, like, I learned a lot about myself, and I can take those lessons and apply them in my life now and be fearless in what I'm doing, because I've realized now that all of those people's expectations and opinions are actually meaningless. This is about the relationship between me and what I want. Yes, I have expectations that I set for myself, and I will either live up to them, exceed them, or fall short of them, but it has nothing to do with, the peanut gallery of the public.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that's something that, you're talking to me within the last year that it's clicked. Like, I wouldn't even be able to come on this podcast even 2 years ago. Like, I just, I kind of put all those things together through writing the book, self-discovery, lots of conversation. And that was such a freeing and wonderful moment to have of, okay, like, my life makes sense. Like, I just wanted it all to make sense. Like, if I was going to go through some tough times and some painful times, I want it to make sense for right now. I think that was always kind of how can I have resolution with, everything that's gone on, the good, the bad, the ugly. And that, right, what you just said, has done that. Like, to feel like, yes, there's going to be lots of more curveballs in life. I'm 31 years old. But, okay, throw them my way, because I've gone through, I've taken some shots, and I'm still standing.
Yeah. Well, when I was 31, I was in rehab. So.
Okay, well.
No, in all seriousness, I think, in reading your book, the sense that I got, and I think you said it earlier, is my take is, even if nobody read this book and this was just a personal diary entry for you, my sense in reading it was, oh, this is the first time that she's doing this because she's trying to figure out how to work through these things. And some of this stuff, if not most of this stuff, is stuff she's never spoken about publicly or admitted. to anybody.
Dead on.
Right?
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is such a cathartic experience and so necessary to the growth trajectory that you're on.
Yeah, and I fought it. Like I tried to start on my own a couple times, and every time it would end in just tears. It's like, okay, like I'm clearly not ready for this yet. And then I finally got connected to the ghostwriter, and even then, like I submitted, here's my 40 pages that I've written, and he was like, well, this is pretty surface level. Like, all right, yeah, you're right. I need a coach. Like, I need someone who's gonna be like, dig deeper, say more, because I'd never gone there, and I knew I needed to when it was about a month before I finally decided, okay, I'm quitting my corporate job. I'm gonna write this book. I'm ripping off the Band-Aid. And I was with my husband, Todd, and his aunt, and she was really pushing. She was like, why would you not write a book? Like, why would you not write a book? And I was just like, I don't feel like anyone's gonna, like, again, the silver medal thing is in my head. And I felt very, I don't know if she knows this, but I felt very pushed. I felt very into a corner. And we were in New York, and we were living in New Jersey at the time, and we Ubered back, and I, like, without even being able to control it, just burst into tears, like blubbering tears, like where you just can't control it. And Todd was like, what just happened? I was like, I can't. I just like had this, and I was like surprised at myself because I cry a lot, but I cry when I'm happy, I cry when I'm mad, but it was just this like uncontrollable thing.
Well, it's 15 years or 20 years
like
of pent up, compartmentalized emotion.
Yeah. And he was just like looking at me like, what's wrong? I was like, I don't know. And then I thought about it more, and it was kind of the final like straw. It was just like, yeah, like I need to do this. Like it's going to really suck, and it's going to be really hard. Like Todd knew. He'd be like, what year are you in? Like, if I was, like, in a good mood while we were writing, he was like, you're in a good year? If I was he's like, you're in, like, 2009, 2010? I'd be like, yeah. It was like that. It was like working through things I wouldn't even talk about in therapy. Obviously, like, I feel like my ghostwriter was like a kind of filter out everything, but I unloaded everything for 8 months. So it was just like a 8-month-long therapy session that turned into a book, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I would suspect feeling like lighter in your shoes.
Yeah, lighter for a while, and then right before the book was going to come out, it's like, oh my gosh, I feel
Somebody
naked.
might read this.
So I feel really exposed because, and even like the little sections in the book, those were really vulnerable, like little excerpts, because the ghostwriter had asked me each week to, he gave me 3 topics, and he was like, you pick what you want and you free flow and just let it come from within. Not thinking, I was like, oh, cool. Like he's going to get to know my psyche better and get to know me. So I'm just going to be really honest. Not thinking that we were going to actually put that in the book and publish it. And when he asked, I was like, you know what? Yes. Like if I'm not going to make this the most vulnerable, authentic thing ever, then I don't want to publish it.
Right. It's no good unless you do that anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's surface level.
But it's scary.
It's scary. The day before I was like, oh, okay, here we go. And people will, feel what they feel, and hopefully it's positive, or hopefully it helps people through something. And I think the biggest compliment I've been given so far is people gifting it to someone who's going through a tough time and saying like, read this book, this will help. And that's
cool.
Really cool.
Yeah. So with that in mind, what is the, advice that you would give to your 15-year-old self or your 19-year-old self? Like being on the other side of this, could you have spared yourself some of the angst and consternation? Like, what is it about competition at that level that, people don't understand, that you wish, your young self kind of understood better?
I think the one piece is just stopping I know it sounds so cliche, but just stopping for a second and being in the moment. Like I never stopped. It was just like, check the box. Even at trials, which was in 2008, which was probably the best meet of my life. Like breaking world records.
5 for 5.
5 for 5. Like it was next thing. It wasn't, wow, oh my gosh, like this is really cool. And I don't know how I would have done that, because that's, again, the byproduct.
Right, because if you're enjoying it, then it is a weird thing. Like, can you have it both ways?
I don't, and I know, like, there's people I've seen, like, for example, Katie Ledecky. I don't know her super well, but I know her, we've had conversations, and I'm very envious of how she has carried herself. She
seems to have it very in check.
Yes. And I'm sure there's, she has her moments, she's human, but I think I was always so all over the place and next thing and robotic that I don't, like, from the age of 10, when it was just like, okay, like, systematic, here's what I'm doing. That's why I made my comeback for 2016, because I'm like, did I even enjoy a second at the Olympics? Like, everyone's like, oh my God, was the Olympics so much fun? And I used to be like, yeah. And now I'm like, no, it was extremely stressful.
Yeah.
Now I'm honest.
No, that was the thing about, the comeback was all about, like, I want to have this experience and be able to be present and enjoy it and not be so, insanely attached to the results. But that's when the whole blood clot thing happens, the pulmonary embolism. And you're like, I could try to struggle through this, but that is at odds with the whole reason you got back into it again.
Yeah, that was I think that was not a punch I thought would ever, I mean, I was very fortunate in my swimming career. I never really had any injuries, like a groin pull here, shoulder tendonitis there, but nothing crazy. So to finally get into the mode of, I'm gonna make a comeback, I'm gonna do this. I found a coach it was just very much of a partnership at that point. I'm 24 years old. I'm a student of the sport. Like, I was always very curious about sets. So I felt confident to be like, we should do this. And it was a really cool collaboration for the first time in my career.
And meanwhile, women are competing older and older. We have Dara Torres and Amanda Beard and all these people who are killing it. So you're certainly still very much, in the midst of being able to achieve peak performances.
Yeah. And I think, and of course, the one thing that I felt eluded by was that gold medal. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the U.S. is always strong in the 4x200 freestyle relay. To be honest, I don't think I knew, I was realistic. Like, I knew, okay, I'm not going to go and, like, win 5 events at trials.
Right, but just pick one or two.
Just like,
focus.
Just pick one or two, enjoy. Of course, the 2 events I'm best at the time, 200 IM and 200 free fall on the same night. I was like, I'm not 19 anymore. I'm not going to do that double. I'm going to go with, either. I had to pick. I was going to have to pick.
You want to be on a relay, so you go the 200 free.
Yeah. I think that was what I was leaning towards, to be honest with you. But I just remember feeling so, and it was really cool to have, the guy that had just, proposed to me, and to have him a part of that as well. He was training me outside of the pool because he was a trainer. And it was just really, like, all I wanted, I was like, God, if I could get Anderson caps, I would have a Hoff and Anderson cap. Like, that would be so special to be able to have that. So I just felt, for the first time, balanced, and I was enjoying things, and I was swimming lights out. Like, I was swimming times I used to pace, in the peak of my training. And so to go to, the year out is 2000, or year and a half out, 2014 Nationals, and, have this pain that I was initially told was an intercostal strain was devastating. Like, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I thought I was weak. I'll never forget, someone was like, oh yeah, I had a strain the other day like that. And they're like, acted like, what's wrong with you? You can't.
Right. You were just misdiagnosed for an
7
extended
weeks.
period of time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, well, maybe I'm not as tough as I thought. Like, maybe, maybe I just totally doubting my whole mindset. And then to be diagnosed with, I had 2 of them on the bottom of my right lung. It still didn't really dawn on me. Like, now looking back, like, I flew 6 hours with blood clots in my lungs. Like, could have
And it
easily
feels
died.
like knives in your chest, right? Super painful.
Oh, it started out kind of just like a cold, and then it went to, like, literally someone's, like, stabbing you, and I couldn't even take in air, so I passed out. And my poor fiance is having to figure out, like, well, do I call the ambulance, and she's going to get an IV, which without a TUE is disqualification for the meet, or do, we just figure this out? And him being an elite athlete, like I think most people probably listening to this are like, yeah, you call the ambulance because she's passed out. But he knew that this was everything. So I didn't want to be disqualified. And so, yeah, I'll never forget kind of just holding out hope that I could still compete to make, the world's team, which is really the setup for the Olympics in 2016. And I just looked up and then I was like, you guys have to get out of the pool, because I know if I get out of the pool, it means this is done and I'm not going to be able to do this. And then, kind of then relief getting the diagnosis of the pulmonary embolism, because at least I know what's wrong with me.
I'm not a wimp.
I'm not a wimp. Like, they're like, get in this wheelchair, ma'am. I'm like, no, I have been training for 7 weeks without a wheelchair. I'm not getting in a wheelchair. They admitted me to the hospital. And then, I kind of just tried to fight it and thought maybe I can make my training shorter.
But so when that happens, is it like a chronic thing? It recurs, or what's the situation with that? It's not an isolated thing like, oh, I had these clots, but now they're gone and I'm fine.
Well, it kind of depends on the person. So I had every blood test under the sun in terms of, does this run in your family? Do you have some type of, disease, not disease, but some type of mutation where it's going to happen again? And they couldn't really find anything. So I still don't really know how they...
But you go on blood thinners, but is that forever, or how does that work?
So you go on blood thinners, essentially your body kind of dissolves the clots itself, and then you go in and they kind of decide, like, are you on blood thinners for life, or are you able to go off them and just be conscious? And that was ultimately mine. I was on there for 3 years, and now I'm just conscious. And obviously I'm not pregnant or anything, but with pregnancy in my future, I'll have to be careful, because that's
but you haven't had a recurrence of it.
No. So,
but then you had your thymus taken out, right?
Yes.
Like you had what happened?
So I feel like that was also...
Because that's weird. Like, is that related?
I feel like it's related. And I think I was probably so rude in the hospital, because it was really hard to accept this. Okay, this happened. We don't know how. There was no resolution. And I'm still struggling. There was the scar tissue buildup in my lungs. I was still feeling it. I was still dying at the end of races, at the end of sets, going, "What? You said it was going to be fine." And so then my thymus gland was twice the size that it was supposed to be. So they thought it was potentially cancerous. They removed it. And I wanted the doctor to come in and say, that's probably what caused the clots. Now you're all good. Like, I had this very big hope that they would be like, you're fine. You can return to normal. You can return to training. This was the issue that was making it hard for you to breathe. And he essentially said the opposite. He was like, well, it's going to be really tough, to have the full lung capacity to make an Olympic team again, but at least you're alive. And to me, that was like, what if I said that to you, doctor? Like, well, you can't be a doctor anymore, but at least you're alive. Like, that's...
The thymus is, I don't know that much about the thymus, but it's super important to immunity when you're young, but as you age, right, it becomes like this sort of dormant gland.
Yeah.
But I would imagine it still plays some role. Like, it can't be innocuous to just remove it, especially when you're trying to be an elite athlete.
I would think there'd be some type of, I don't know if it was causation or correlation to why I would have, like, if it was double, again, I'm not a doctor, so I have no idea, but if it was double in size, wouldn't that affect my body's ability to...
Right. If it was double in size, was it producing some kind of, immunity response that was working at odds with your ability to recover, or, who knows? I don't know. I sound like an idiot right now. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But I was sitting there doing the same thing.
If your thymus is twice the size, like something's wrong, you know? And when we're dealing in a world of hundreds of seconds, making a difference, I can't imagine that there wasn't some kind of impact on you physically.
Yeah, because talk about not feeling yourself. Like, I did not feel myself. I could not train the same way that I had trained right before Nationals in 2014. And, it was misery. Like, I was not myself. I didn't want to see people. I didn't want to go to dinner. I just was so upset that I had, again, taken this risk, decided to come back into swimming. And then it was like, no.
Yeah.
And then that's ultimately, it's like, what am I doing? Like, you're repeating the cycle. You're repeating it again, like I need to close this because I'm like a shell of myself in terms of misery.
And to do it kind of, anonymously with this sort of, you kind of saunter off, without anybody really paying attention. Like it's so far outside of the spotlight at this point based upon, where you were in 2008.
Yeah. And
that's had to be hard.
Yeah. I remember saying, I'm like, is anyone even going to care? Like, I remember being frustrated because no one saw the times that I was doing in practice before. No one knew, other than my coach, maybe Todd, my parents, and myself, what kind of times I was doing. And the meets I was doing well too, but it just felt very like I just kind of got like shortchanged. And that was also a piece I was very resentful of, culmination, obviously everything we've talked about, but that having it end like that, I was like, oh my gosh.
Like so much unfinished business.
Yeah.
And how do you move forward and not allow like that resentment to fester and, basically manifest in all kinds of ways that would not serve you?
Yeah. So many different ways. Yeah, so many different ways.
Be an angry person, to be, I mean, really, like it's like it's a serious thing, I would think.
Yeah, there's just so many breakdowns and so many, and I didn't really, like most people, really, it was just Todd that in my family that knew, like poor guy. He was going through his own, he just finished his football career. So we were both
So how many years did he play pro?
So he only played, he'll say I had a cup of coffee in the league. So he played for a year. He was a walk-on, had a pretty bad hamstring injury, ended up getting cut after a year. But he his career was actually the opposite. Like he was a walk-on at Michigan State. He kind of was just on this like I'm kind of jealous of your just like trajectory. But he was also...
So everybody's underestimating him, right? He's exceeding everybody's expectations.
Yeah. I'm like, he's like, yeah, but I didn't reach the high. I'm like, I don't care. Like sometimes we've got...
But still, there's a shorthand there, right? So he didn't end up having some super smashing, successful pro football career. And you're able to have he's going to be able to understand where you're coming from almost better than anybody.
Yeah. And he, there's so many times where it's just like, God, you need to go see a therapist. Like this is manifesting itself in and I would have like the random breakdowns or, it just wasn't, and I don't think anyone really, how could anyone understand? But I really kept it hidden and people just kind of just disappeared, like from the swimming. Like when I came back last year, people were like, oh, nice to have you back in the swimming world, because I just couldn't stand to be in front of a group of kids and say, yeah, like swimming is fun. And I'm like, I'm lying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to frame my career because there are positive things. There's so many positive things, but how do I do it in a way that's constructive and helpful and vulnerable all at the same time? Like I had no idea how to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think people who I'm sure people who from outside the swimming world saw me, they're like, what is wrong with her? Like, why can't she be satisfied? Or, why does she look upset? Or, there's so many times where I felt like I just was terrible at handling my emotion.
Well, I also think there are institutional failures or like systemic blind spots. Like I feel like it's incumbent upon USA Swimming or the organizational bodies of all the sports to do a better job of creating mental health programs around, not just how you deal with failing to live up to your own expectations, but how you make this career transition or, some kind of programming around the emotional and mental aspects of elite competition. because it's stressful and it's anxiety producing. And I would say the vast majority of athletes who are competing at the highest level at some point are faced with very serious mental health challenges.
Yes.
And there's no infrastructure set up around how to best manage that. Everybody's sort of left to their own devices, and some fall and some, make their way through it. But just saying, oh, here's your meditation app, or go to the meditation room, or, maybe you should talk to somebody, I think is inadequate. And I think it's now it's 2021. Like, let's take this seriously, and let's put some time and intentionality and some funding behind figuring out how to support young people all the way through the process, so that when they get to the Olympic Games and they've qualified in 5 events, they're mentally fit to handle it, because they've been dealing with this in lockstep all along.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's funny because I feel like now mental health is so prolific in what everyone talks about. And I've been asked a lot recently, like, well, was there did you get support? Did you get people reach out to you? The extent of, I'll never forget, we did this Navy SEAL day at Olympia.
Oh, right. You talk about this in the book, yeah.
And, walking off and having this.
This made you mad.
So mad. Being like, this whole crazy day where we're, in fatigues in this freezing cold water and getting screamed at. And doesn't that make the 400 IM seem so much easier, like mentally?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, like that, no. And I think I do take part responsibility, right? Like, you have to also be willing to accept help, right? And you have to have...
Right. The problem is, sorry to step in, but I think a big problem, and this has come up with a lot of athletes that I've talked to on the podcast, your whole life is premised on not admitting weakness. Like, you could not admit, because that is, antithetical to the performances you're trying to execute on, right? Like, I'm good. Like, I am strong, I am impervious, and I can handle this.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, I mean, the same reason why I never wanted to admit out loud how terrified I was for Beijing. It's like, by saying it out loud, by saying I have a problem, or I'm not doing okay, I'm not handling this well out loud, just makes it real.
Right.
And I think,
but the truth is, it's real whether you admit it or not.
Yes, it exists. It's affecting you. It's affecting your mood and your actions and your relationships. And so I think, I think making it more normalized too. I went into my hole. I mean, I feel like some people talk to each other, but I didn't want to admit to some of my friends or my colleagues what I was going through or why. And for mine, I always felt so, I don't know what the word is. How can I say to people, I'm upset or I'm not at peace with my career? I want to, well, you won 3 medals. You want to, but when you're being called the female Michael Phelps and you're supposed to win multiple, that is a fail. It's a really hard thing to phrase and say without sounding like you're ungrateful, or, do you know what I mean? Like, it's something that I've needed to lean on people. Like, how do I say this? Or do you understand what I mean? Or do you understand, and it's been a few people in my life, even Jesse, honestly, I had a couple conversations with him about just the transition and how I felt so strange in corporate life. And
what did he say to you?
He was like, yeah, of course not. It just made me feel so understood. And he doesn't know this, but we drove away, and I actually got really emotional because I was like, oh my gosh, I just feel so understood. And for so long, I felt like it's me. Again, like, you put it on yourself. Like, it's for sure me. Like, I'm the person who leaves a conversation or leaves an event, and I'm like, all right, let me recount that whole thing and just analyze how I handled that, and make sure I'm self-aware enough to know if I've messed up or if I didn't, handle that conversation right. And so I always felt like the after part was I'm not patient enough, or I'm not framing this right, or people had people say that to me, like, oh, I'm not satisfied. Well, yeah, that's just because like you gotta wait your turn, and I'm like, who is super successful that is patient? Like, yes, you have to wait for time, but you're always forging ahead and wanting to keep going. And I just felt so like it's me. Like, I think that maybe I just have been in this swimming bubble for so long that I just don't know what it's like in the real world. I convinced myself of this narrative, and I just need to change and figure it out. And hopefully eventually I'll start to feel better. And
right. And the problem with that is you're very good at finding that, what did you call it? The deeper gear, like
deep down gear.
Yeah. So you can find the deep down gear and you can grind it out, right?
Yeah.
And you can like sublimate whatever emotions you have around that and just grind.
Yeah.
But ultimately that's an unsustainable path, right?
Unsustainable.
Because you're like, well, it worked in swimming and this is what I got to do now that I'm retired. And you're going to run into a brick wall at some point. And the good news is you've kind of done that and you've learned from that experience. And, as Jesse said, I would say to you as well, like, it's not you, it's just about finding that lane that fits with the values that you're coming to terms with. And I think the fact that you're owning, this path that you're on and the past that you've had, and simply by dint of talking about it, right, is like so powerful. And it gives so many other people permission to recognize, their own version of that pain or disappointment that they've experienced in their lives. And that's how we move forward. Like, I'm sure you saw the Weight of Gold documentary that Michael produced. Like, this conversation is happening. It's long overdue, but it's happening now. And I think it's going to have, this ripple effect of healing across generations, from, the 8-year-old, version of yourself to the parents who are trying to guide young people through their own athletic or entrepreneurial or whatever it is career.
Yeah, it's really exciting and refreshing just to see where things are headed. I mean, with my own, but the way I'm able to even talk to girls I mentor or talk to athletes that we work with with our Synergy company. And that, I think, has also been, as much as mentoring people and helping them is, giving, it's also equally helping, the person who is the mentor.
Sure.
And that, I think, has also been helpful for me to be like, okay, this is another thing that makes sense. It makes sense for what I just went through, because then I'm able to really shed light on this for someone who's, I'm seeing this person go through a very similar experience that I went through on a different level or in a different situation, but oh my gosh, like, I know how to handle this, or I know how to give advice, or I know how to...
Of course you do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out of control. Like, all right, so with Rise, which is this mentorship program that you do, that we've talked about it with Caroline on the show. I mean, imagine being a young athlete and they're on the phone with you or on a Zoom call with you. It's like, I've set world records. I've been to 2 Olympics. I've won medals. I've set American, I've traveled all over the world. I've done all of these things. And I've fallen on my face, and I've been in situations where the pressure was too overwhelming, and I've had breakdowns. Like, that richness of experience is so valuable to any young person who's coming up, and they're going to listen to you. Who has more credibility with any of this stuff than you? It's really powerful.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, again, like, but I have to be willing to share those stories, right? Like, I have to be able to
You have to be vulnerable. But that vulnerability is strength.
Yeah.
That's your superpower, right?
Yeah,
like,
it really,
like if you're LeBron or Michael, like, that's unrelatable. Yes, Michael's had his issues and, all of that, but somebody who has blazed an impeccable career that looks unblemished, and that it's just this upward, skyward trajectory.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to connect with that person or to relate to them. And when that person's like, well, you just got to gut it out, you're like, well,
thanks.
You don't understand what I'm dealing with. Yeah, it's not helpful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that I actually have seen that wall break down, because even so, right, you're saying like, okay, 3-time Olympic medalist, Olympian, all these things. And I think but it's the failures that give it.
No, it is.
But I'm saying when they initially hear that, great. But I don't think a lot of times, some of them are younger, right?
Right.
Like they don't know like my full story, but I'll kind of seep it in as we're getting to know each other and talk. And I'll be like, yeah, so, I work with a girl who's just turned 16. I'm like, yeah, I get it. You're scared of this event. I was scared of that event. And then my nightmare was realized when I literally threw up all over the deck in front of millions of people and I had to get back up. And like, you can see like oh my gosh, like I'm not sharing the highlight reel with you. I'm sharing the full on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I can see the impact it makes of, okay, like we can relate to each other,
Right.
And I think.
Or how about just like, how do you get through puberty when you have a male coach who doesn't understand that? Like there's so much to be learned and gleaned from the kind of experience that you can relate.
Yeah. And I think it's been to have now the confidence and the ability to go there with the athletes. Caroline and Rebecca have had Rise for 5 years, and right off the bat they were like, do you want to be a part of this? I remember being like, who would want to listen to me? Like I need a mentor. Like I am flailing, like I didn't want to. I thought I had everything together and I was all buttoned up, and like I'm still not buttoned up, like I still have days where I struggle. And now I just say that, like, look, hey, I'm telling you this, I'm struggling with this right now. Like, let's talk about this. Like, it doesn't mean I have to be perfect. And I think I thought that was what had to happen in order for me to be ready to be their mentor.
Right. Yeah.
It seems so simple.
I know it's like it's obvious and it's self-evident, and yet, I think there's a lot of people for whom that would be a revelation for them to hear, especially if you're a young athlete coming up, like, oh, you mean I can actually ask for help, or I don't have to be perfect all the time?
Well, it's kind of actually breaks my heart even more to hear, because I was never someone who, like, I was the question asker. I was at least willing to, I wasn't afraid of a coach to be like, I was that annoying person. Like, wait, like, can you tell me more? Like, how can I get better at this? And yes, I didn't admit when I was struggling as much, but nowadays I feel like kids are scared to even put themselves out there to ask a question or ask for feedback. And they're like, well, and I asked,
Coach said this. So.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait, but why would you not? The coach loves when you ask how fast to go, or they're like, yeah, but like, I don't want to look stupid, or I don't want to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's. And I think that's really normal. Like Todd had said to me, I was like, can you believe that? And he's like, yeah, it's pretty normal nowadays.
Yeah.
Like people are scared of the rejection. They're scared of, again, the failure. And that hits me even more because I get what it was like to not admit, that I'm struggling, but to take another step further, that means that they can't admit they're struggling, even more so if they can't even ask for help.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is fueled by social media, where everybody's presenting these high gloss versions of their lives, and it makes a young person feel even more inadequate than they already do.
For sure. I mean, I can't imagine, like I have TikTok and I see what's out there.
Yeah.
And I can't, like, you see someone and you're like, wait, that person's 16? Like, I know what I was doing and what I was, dancing like and all that when I was 16, and it is
after your first Olympics.
After my first Olympics. And this is a whole different ball game. So yeah, it's tough. I think it's a lot harder, and I think kids need that much more support and help, and probably even more than when I was coming up at that age.
Yeah. Well, we got to round this down, but I want to end with, because most of the people watching or listening to this are probably more in the parental zone than they are in the young athlete zone.
Yeah.
What kind of, glean from your experience, like what's some wisdom that you could convey to the parents out there to make sure that they're kind of guiding their kids, whether their kids are athletes or just, trying to learn how to grow up in a high pressure environment? What have you found to be helpful or not helpful?
I think a lot of times when parents or coaches or mentors, sometimes they want to talk at the person instead of just being a listening ear and putting the athlete in a position to feel comfortable to express. I think we're all moving so fast. We have cell phones all the time. And so I think that a lot of times kids probably don't feel comfortable. They feel like their parents are too busy, or they're not going to share, or the parents are just going to supply, it's okay, you're okay, right? You know, I had a parent text me the other day, athlete had a really tough meet, and just, what should I say? Like, don't say it's okay, because it just tells the athlete how they're supposed to feel. Like, I used to hate it when people say that to me. Like, it's not okay. I just poured hours of blood, sweat, and tears into this. Like, don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel.
You have the thing in the book where when you go to the Olympics and everybody tells you it's just another meet.
I would be like, okay, like, I know that no, it is not. It is not. Yeah, that would drive me crazy. So telling an athlete how they're supposed to feel, and I think the thing that my mom and dad did the best of, just being a listening ear, letting me vent, letting me get everything out, and then providing some perspective. But non-solicited advice happens way too much in this universe, I think. And that makes you want to run the other direction. Whether it's good or bad advice, I think you're not going to take it in the right way. And I try to do that when I want to hear, I just try to keep asking questions. Keep asking questions that aren't yes or no to the so that's the biggest piece of advice.
So I won't ask you to give a piece of unsolicited advice to Katie Ledecky right now.
I wouldn't. Like, if she reached out and asked me, great. But I think that's something, it's happened to me a lot in my life and my career, and it's always been something where I'm like, did I ask? Like, I didn't ask, and that's actually something I learned from Jack Roach. I feel like you've talked about him probably a ton of us. He's like, come on the podcast. But he was so good at just sitting down, even if you're sitting in silence, because then it allowed me to kind of pour my heart out if I wanted to or not. And then he would just listen, absorb, and then, if I asked, he would give an opinion. But I think there has to be that relationship of respect there, of just feeling acknowledged, like, just acknowledge me and how I'm feeling. And then that advice can be given if asked for.
Yeah. For people listening or watching who don't know who Jack Roach is, probably most people, he was the national junior team director for many years, and just beloved in the swimming community.
Yes.
I have yet to meet a swimmer who wouldn't say that Jack is like their favorite person. And I think a big part of that is what you spoke about, which is this level of trust that he engendered with the swimmers and the level of respect that he gave to them, like they felt heard and listened to and appreciated, so they feel safe going to him. And he was, he's protective of those relationships.
Yeah, and I think it's normal, right? Like, I'm not a parent yet, but I can't imagine having a kid and seeing their kid in so much pain. Like, I don't know how my mom did it, watching what I went through with my dad. But you instinctively want to say, well, let me help you solve it. Let's solve it. And that's the reaction. You kind of have to fight that reaction of like, okay, but maybe this person doesn't want what you're giving.
Right.
And I think
it's about just sharing space.
Yes.
But it's funny because you seem like somebody who'd be like, how do I solve this problem? Like, if somebody came to you, be like, I need to solve this problem for you.
Me?
Like, you're a problem solver.
100%. Yeah. I have to fight that instinct all the time. I'm like, I just want to like tell you what I think you should do. But then I'm like, no, because that's what I've learned that I hate. And I get so frustrated. And I think that's why sometimes I would keep things in. It's like, I don't even want to put this out there because I don't necessarily want you to solve it.
Yeah.
Or I don't feel like you're the right person to solve it. So yeah, it's something that I know about myself and I've dissected about myself that like, calm down, like, don't solve this, keep asking questions and let them solve it.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen with the Olympics this summer?
I hope it's just, I don't know. This past year broke my heart. Like, just, I can't.
Can you imagine?
No.
What if it was you? Going into 2008, but it was 2021 pandemic style. How heartbreaking. I feel like I would. I
mean, that's honestly why, like, when the pandemic started, I thought, okay, what would this is right when I was kind of entering back into the swimming world. I'm like, what would I want? And that's that's why we started Synergy. That's why I started doing these live workouts, and I was like sweating it out with kids because I thought I wouldn't want someone to just be like, stay positive, control what you can control.
Right.
I would want to say, yeah, but so what can I control? And what can I physically do to stay stronger outside the water? And that's the thing I felt like, okay, I think that's what I would do. Like I would just, and I think that's what all the elite athletes and people who are going to see results this year have done. Like they didn't just sit back, and I'm sure they were very upset, as I would have been, but they took things and thought, okay, like let's get creative. Let's build like these blow up pools. Like people had to get crazy.
And just a diversity of experiences with respect to pool access, who could get into pools and who can't. And I mean, it's crazy. And how to manage that like safely. And it's so strange.
It's so strange. And yeah, I think again, like, right, like people who aren't necessarily elite or haven't been in a situation like that, they're like, yeah, but it's like, it's like, no, the Olympics is literally like everything. I mean, I think there's that study that...
And it's not like next time, like, for some people, it will play to their benefit because they were a little bit too young. And so now they can grow into it. Whereas others who are hanging on.
Yeah. A year is like an eternity.
Is like, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's so many things. What's the study where they asked like a group of athletes, have you heard this, where if you could, maybe these Olympics, or if you could win an Olympic gold medal, but then die 5 years later, like guaranteed, I think like it was staggering. It was like 80% said yes.
I heard that. Where did I hear that too? I did hear that recently. It's shocking.
I'm not that...
But it's the mentality of somebody who's going to devote their life to that goal is the person who would make that statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I always bring that up because I think that illustrates... That's how serious it is. Like you are willing to like die for like that goal, and that's how much it means to you. And when you look at it, you're like, that's ridiculous. Like what? And I say that now, but in that moment when you're in that tunnel, I probably would have said yes too. And I think that just it's the best and worst part about it.
Yeah. Well, I think we did it.
Yes.
How do you feel?
I loved it.
So when you're driving home or driving wherever you're driving after this, I don't want you like rehearsing this and thinking.
I totally am. That's what I do every single, like I think, was it Nathan Adrian one time? We said something and I was like, oh, like I for sure, like I definitely like overanalyze everything. He's like, why don't you just like go home and just like hang out with your friends?
Right.
Like, I was like, I can't. I just always, I hate the people that are like, that are like, you're like, does that person realize like how they're coming off? Like those people. And so I've always been like, oh my God, like what if I am not realizing how I'm coming off, So.
I think you can put your mind at ease. Okay. It was great. You feel all right? You feel good?
I feel great.
Good.
I appreciate that. I was really nervous.
I think we hit the important things.
Yeah. I really liked being able to just talk about, it's almost like being able to share my side of things, because for so long I just really didn't get to. And then just the piece about, like you said, like I just love being able to talk about, I hate talking about like the world records. Like, yeah, that's great. Yeah. But like no one can relate to that. They're like, congrats, The failures to me is where people can get it and feel.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah. Like they can feel like they can learn from it or relate to it or, yeah. So
I mean, I think what you've done to date in your retirement is admirable and cool, but I think that there's a lot more awesome, cool stuff to come.
Yeah.
That I see you growing into.
Yeah. I'm really excited for I like the speaking stuff as stuff that I'm most passionate about, because it checks, I'm not just said check all the boxes, but it checks all the boxes in terms of like, you can share your story, which is cathartic for me still. You can inspire people. It's like a performance in some way, like swimming was. You get adrenaline and all of that. Like
It's totally like that.
It's totally like that.
Yeah.
And then you can always get better. You're never going to, you're just like, I don't think you can ever have the perfect swim. You're never going to have the perfect speech. There's always going to be ways to get better and change it and tweak it. And so I love that aspect of it too. So I feel like that kind of found my like next endeavor.
Yeah. When the world opens up again.
I've done 2 virtual like sales kickoffs with a company, but it's like through a screen, you know, it's such a bummer.
Yeah.
But
soon enough.
No, thank you so much for having me. Seriously.
Oh, this is super fun.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was great. Really great. And you're welcome back here anytime.
Thank you.
Come back and visit me, okay?
Yeah.
Cool. If you're digging on Katie, as I'm sure you are, do you prefer Katie Anderson now? Is that how, or is it Katie Hoff or Katie Hoff Anderson? Like, how do you go? What's the?
Legally, I
mean, people know you as Katie Hoff from swimming,
yes,
right? But now
Katie
you're married and.
I'm Katie Anderson. I'm Katie Anderson legally, but I'm Katie Hoff. Like if I'm doing like
you're at KT Hoff 7 is who you are.
You know why the 7 is there?
Why?
Because
7 gold medals.
That was my goal.
7 gold medals that you didn't win?
The 7 gold medals I didn't win? No. Lane 7 in the 400 IM in 04 was when I made my first Olympic team.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that story.
Yeah. So,
awesome.
KT Hoff. KT. And I always go with KT.
Yeah, KT.
Because everyone always calls me KT.
Yeah,
also, someone stole my handle.
Really? Just KATIE Hoff at Katie Hoff.
Katie Hoff, or for a website, katiehoff.com, was bought the day after I made the Olympic team in 04
No
by
way.
like IPG.
Well, there's like squatting laws now. People aren't allowed to do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they said they were it was gonna be like $10K for me to buy it, and I was like, I'll just go by katiehoff.com.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's good. We all know you there now.
Yeah.
And the book is Blueprint, and Synergy is the online dryland program.
Yeah, it's we work with teams, we work with individuals. It's been my entrepreneurship realized with my husband, which has been kind of a cool. He's the brains behind it, and I'm the swimming lens, and we do everything. He actually just did a virtual session while we were talking.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
We didn't even get into what it's like to work with your husband. We could have a whole 2-hour podcast about that. So we'll do that next time. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Enjoy the rest of your time in LA. And so nice to meet you and talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Peace. Bye.